I'm going to be going over some of the biggest stories in the news about Donald Trump. Is he going to be arrested? Is he walking into a trap laid by the Democrat Party and CNN and so much more? To help me go through that, I have David Freiheit with me. David, thank you so much for coming on today.
My pleasure. Freiheit. It means freedom verbatim in German. So it's a good last name to have.
Yes. If you're a freedom lover, absolutely. Let me give a little bit of background on you. David is a former litigator and speaker, writer, podcast host, and he has his own super successful show over on Rumble where he talks about American issues and also Canadian issues and even international issues. The first thing that I wanted to jump in with you, since you have a legal background, is what do you think is going to happen to Donald Trump during the sentencing of the New York case? Are the Democrats going to send him to jail over this misdemeanor that they changed the law to heighten to a federal issue? Are they saying, wait a minute, we might make this man president of the United States if we send him to jail? What are your thoughts on what they're going to do during the sentencing?
So I always feel the need to preface everything I'm about to say. I'm a former Quebec civil attorney, so I have no American law practice. I have some knowledge, but only what I've acquired over the years. I like to pick the brains of bigger legal minds in the United States from both sides. I mean, I don't listen to, but I hear what Lawrence Tribe has to say, only so that I know what is the wrong position to adopt in law. Lawrence Tribe, who's another one? Mark Elias. I'm interested in what he has to say, but I listen to Jonathan Turley, Dershowitz, my partner-in-law, Robert Barnes. Dershowitz had what I think is the best take on it, is that, the judge Marchand is he's a corrupt political hack. He's a partisan player in all of this. I say he's a political asset. He wants to punish Trump with something that is going to be symbolically serious, but not so egregious that it gets overturned and he gets even further embarrassed on appeal. Also, they only wanted, as far as I'm concerned, the headline convicted felon. They don't actually want to put him in jail because that will be seen as overt political interference. That said, everything they've done thus far has only made Trump more popular, and they have to be saying, what do we have to do that'll actually successfully make him less popular? The bottom line, I don't think they're going to lock him up. I mean, I think that results in an immediate overturn on appeal. They might go with something like a suspended sentence that is symbolically serious, but doesn't actually result in him going to jail. The logistics behind that, the politics behind that, because if they send him to jail, I mean, they're sinking their own ship. They can't prop up Trump anymore through their actions. They'll just sink their own ship. But I think they'll give him something serious, like a suspended sentence, and he'll still appeal it. And this thing gets overturned on appeal because it was an injustice from day one.
Do you think that the entire thing from start to finish, once Alvin Bragg agreed to the case, because at first he was against it, the FEC was against it, other litigators were against it, so they finally convince him, maybe George Soros calls him up, hey, you're only in the district attorney office because of the money I gave you, go after Trump. I don't know what the background is. Maybe Congress will have the balls to investigate it one day, but right now they just send strongly worded letters, right? But what do you think was the entire purpose to get the title convicted felon?
It's an unequivocal yes. I mean, they first of all, the FEC looked into it, said there's no campaign finance violations because it wasn't made. Whatever payment you think is there was never made with campaign finances in the first place. Politically motivated? I mean, they've known about this since 2016, 2017. And then wait until the end of 2024 to prosecute in front of Alvin Bragg, Soros funded indirectly so that nobody fact checks and says he never received a check directly from Soros. Soros goes through the Color of Change Political Action Committee, who then spent $1 million plus on Soros, got him elected. Judge Juan Marchand, his daughter works for Authentic PR, raking in millions, raising funds for her Democrat political action committees. The liar of all liars, Adam Schiff. Hold on now. I forgot the question here. The question was, they were politically motivated. I'm sorry. I got lost in the political controversy. It was politically motivated, transparently so on its face. Alvin Bragg prior didn't want to, pursue this because it's bullcrap. And they had some people, leave the office in protest. And then he finally found his conscience. The charges were nonsense. They basically charged and convicted Trump for exactly what Hillary Clinton and the DNC did with the Steele dossier, except when she paid for that Steele dossier, lied about it, concealed the payment, she actually did it with campaign finances, compared to Trump. Whatever he did was his own personal money. So politically motivated, obviously on his face. They just wanted that headline. And we're going to hear them say it over and over again. Probably won't be Sleepy Joe saying it tomorrow night at the debate. But it sure as hell will be Jake Tapper and CNN. They just needed the convicted felon headline title to give to Trump, twice impeached convicted felon president, as though they're trying to build him into a criminal that he never was and never will be. And it's backfiring wildly. But yeah, it was transparently politically motivated, as was everything, every aspect of the lawfare that we've witnessed, from Georgia to Colorado to Maine to New York to DC to Florida. And the New York wasn't a slip up, the multiple cases in New York. It's all a political hit job.
Yeah. I would think, again, I'm not legal anything, but the E. Jean Carroll case, right? I would think that they would have tried to get the rapist versus a felon with an accounting error as the title that they would want to go with, right? And but they didn't, because as they went through everything, they're like, wait a minute, there's not really a case here. The only thing we can get him on is that he said he didn't do it, and that defamed her. But I would think that would have been the one that they would go, okay, in all of the moral, ethical minds of Americans, being a rapist would be much worse than being someone convicted of an accounting error. Especially in jail, right? You walk into jail, you don't want to be a pedophile or a cop, right? But they go, hey, what are you in here for? An accounting error.
Well,
right?
No, but the E. Jean Carroll thing, first of all, they did try to go with him as the rapist, even though he was never found civilly liable for rape. Also, everyone should appreciate this. In 2020, Time Magazine wrote that article, how they fortified the election, a secret cabal of well-connected, influential people, changing the rules, changing the laws, controlling the flow of information. That was what they wrote about in 2020. They weren't rigging the election, they were fortifying it. It's exactly what they've done in 2024 now. E. Jean Carroll was only able to sue Trump civilly because she and her lawyer lobbied to have a law passed, which was the Adult Survivors Act, which enabled her to sue on an otherwise statutorily expired, lapsed claim. The claim is batshit crazy from the get-go. Nobody believes it, but she filed the claim in a politically prejudiced jurisdiction, and she got her civil liability for sexual abuse. If anyone's seen the jury verdict form, it says, do you find that Trump raped E. Jean Carroll? And they checked off no. And then it went down to the next question, sexually abused, and they said yes. So they got the sexual abuse, but they didn't get the title rapist until that corrupt hack of a judge, Kaplan, in that case, in one of his footnotes of a prior decision says, yeah, technically under New York law, because of how strictly it's defined, he didn't rape her, but colloquially speaking, he did rape her. So it's correct to say that he raped E. Jean Carroll, or it's incorrect for him to say that he didn't. And that's how the hacks got that title, rapist, because a lot of them run still with it on Twitter, even though it's arguably defamatory, but not. But the thing is, nobody believes it. Nobody believes that, because anybody who's seen E. Jean Carroll knows that she is insane. She's a crazy, demented woman who has been exploited by a political party that has no qualms exploiting the mentally unhinged and the mentally impaired. But they got that title, and it wasn't enough because it wasn't working. So then they had to go with the convicted felon, and they tried to get it in the RICO Georgia case, but that got derailed because of the RICO corruption of Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, and the system. They tried to get it in DC, and it's not moving fast enough because Jack Smith, with his corrupt prosecution in DC, can't get to trial fast enough. And so they take this stupid state claim, which is itself, the state claim out of New York is based on state law. The only way they got it to a felony offense from a misdemeanor was by linking it to purported federal offenses, felonies, which I don't know how you do in law, because you're having a state claim bumped to a felony predicated on federal acts, which there's a jurisdictional issue there that will be dealt with in appeal. But it's like they just needed that title. Where could they get it fastest? It seems that New York is the most judicially corrupt state in the union, and they got it there. But now they've got the rapist, even though it's a lie, and they've got the convicted felon, even though it's political nonsense. But they've got both of them. And the thing is, nobody believes it quite clearly, because he keeps only rising in the polls.
Well, for me, it was like I was starting to go, oh gosh, this doesn't really look good. And then E. Jean Carroll goes on CNN on Anderson Cooper's show and says, oh, he didn't rape me. And some people think rape is sexy. Like, and they're like, we got to go to a commercial break, right? Like she admits it on national live television and then says some people find rape sexy. Like, the lady is crazy.
The montages of her, I mean, the thing is, she gives these interviews and she says wildly insane things. That's just from what she says in plain sight. You know, the trial was never broadcast for us to see, because had it been, people would say like, holy cows, she's certifiably insane. She names her cat Vagina T Fireball. She posts Facebook posts about how she learned everything she needs to know about sex from her dogs, chased down the dog until they're too exhausted to flee. She loves Trump. Her entire rape fantasy was an episode of Law and Order. But, you know, the Democrats or the uni party, the deep state, they have no qualms exploiting mentally unwell people. And I say this without judgment for Fetterman, but John Fetterman, when he was running against Dr. Oz, he was clearly suffering something mentally that was compromising his cognitive abilities. But they don't care. They just need a warm body in a seat, and they'll run him even to his detriment so long as he beats Dr. Oz. Joe Biden, it's obvious elder abuse, period, for anyone to see. No problem with that. Democrats, progressives, they love exploiting children, Greta Thunberg. And when it comes to E. Jean Carroll, she's clearly, if she's not like MK Ultra manipulated, she's just clearly mentally unwell, but she's a perfect candidate to be weaponized and exploited. Convince her that she's the hero in her own story, and then praise her as the representative of women's rights when she has done more to do harm to women's rights and the claims of actual victims of sexual assault. But they have no problem doing it. And she's just a prime candidate. She's crazy. They control the media so they can sort of downplay the craziness to the extent that she shuts her mouth. And during the trial, for anybody who doesn't know, Trump wasn't allowed adducing any evidence as relates to her abject craziness. She couldn't talk about the prior messages, her Facebook posts, couldn't talk about her cat, couldn't talk about any number of defenses. That and, hallucinating an incident that occurred 25 years ago. But it's history doesn't repeat, but it tends to rhyme, and it's rhyming with what they did in 2020. It's rhyming with what they tried to do in 2016. And we'll see where it goes, but it doesn't look like it's working this time around.
Yeah. One theory about the upcoming debate is that they're having it's the earliest debate in modern history. And I've heard people say, oh, we're doing it in June, or excuse me, in June. We're doing it in June so that Democrats know whether Biden will sink or swim with the American people. If he's going to sink, if he goes down in the polls, if his popularity goes down, he's not raising as much money, then we know we've got to swap him before mid-August, right? I thought, oh, wow, that's actually really, really, a well thought out idea, right? However, what if they are actually pushing it this far forward because they know that Donald Trump is legally trapped by these gag orders, and they're going to hit him over and over again with topics that they know he can't discuss. And if he does, the courts are going to come after him as soon as the red light goes off on the CNN cameras. What are your thoughts on that theory?
Well, that is oddly exactly the theory that I posted to Twitter yesterday, which was, knowing that one paragraph of Judge Marchand's gag order remains. Trump can't badmouth or attack the judge's family, the district attorney Bragg, or his family, or the court, yada, yada. And they'll ask him, ask him a ton of questions. You think this is a political persecution? What do you have to say about that? Oh, Judge Marchand's corrupt, his daughter. Oh, bang, try to go after him for contempt of court. I mean, the fact that they had a gag order in the first place is a constitutional outrage, period. You can't criticize the court corruption. This is like, where was it where someone just exposed the corruption and then gets arrested for it? I have to remember the incident, but oh goodness, where it'll come to me in a second.
Was it over in Germany?
No, it was who exposed the corruption, and then they immediately arrested the person.
Oh, is it the doctor in Houston, Texas?
No, for goodness sake, it'll come. I'm just going to drive me crazy. But the bottom line, the fact that he was gagged in the first place is an outrage. And They lift 2 of the 3 provisions, which is going after witnesses, yada yada, because he's already been found, he's been convicted, so there's no witnesses to protect anymore. And the witnesses they were protecting were the compulsive liar Michael Cohen and the compulsive liar porn star Stormy, whatever. So they've got that provision B of the gag order that's still in effect, and knowing that it's a trap, because it's not a question of if it's a trap. It's a trap. It might be a trap for both Biden and Trump, but it's a trap because CNN, they're not reasonable people. They are the enemies of the people. They're not transparent in any way. You know that whatever they're doing has an anti-Trump bias to it. So I made the joke, like, how many questions on Bragg, the prosecution, the malicious prosecution, are they going to ask to try to get him found in contempt and give Judge Marchand the excuse that he wanted from the previous 10 criminal contempt charges to lock Trump up? I don't think it's going to work. I think Trump has to know this. And my other theory is that, yeah, this is an attempt to set up Trump as much as Biden. They know that Biden needs to be replaced. And if he has a public meltdown that is, makes it clear for the world, and they can wash their hands and say, oh, we didn't realize how bad it was, and now we got to prop in Gavin Newsom to swap him out, who I think they're planning to do because they're even making those 2 guys look the same so that when it happens, the younger generation might not know that there's been a swap. And I think it's a setup for both of them because they know that they can't run Joe, and they're going to do whatever they can to get at Trump.
Yeah. I never considered that they might actually want him to publicly humiliate Biden. Yeah. I've been so focused on the Trump side that I didn't think of the other side, because just this morning I read on Twitter that President Barack Obama has been like secretly calling everyone he knows because he actually thinks that Donald Trump is going to win. And so this may be a setup.
Steve, there's no question Trump is going to win. As much of a setup, as much as they can mute him all they want. He could stand up there and say, you are fake news to every question, and then let Joe Biden talk, and he'll still win the debate. And there's not an amount of drugs they could jack up Joe Biden with that would prop him through this 90-minute discussion, debate, whatever. They can't stick an earpiece in him because the dude's not able to hear and talk at the same time. I'm convinced it's to set Joe Biden up for the most monumental public humiliation, where they then have to say, oh boy, it's really bad now. And we too bad, so sad, we're going to have to replace him. Joe Biden admits it. I could see that happening. It's a longer shot, but I can see that happening. And I'm checking the markets on predicted, because my theory is that they're gonna swap in Gavin Newsom, not Kamala Harris, because I think they would actually, she's unvotable. But there's no question that it's going to be a setup for Trump. And by the way, it was the Fani Willis Young Thug prosecution, where the lawyer for Young Thug, who confronted the judge with an ex parte communication meeting with a witness without disclosing it to the defense, where they were trying to basically coerce the witness in the Young Thug trial. And then the judge holds the lawyer in contempt of court for not telling him who told him about the unlawful, illegal, unethical meeting. Sorry. So it came back. But no, that's it. I think there's no way Joe Biden is going to be able to perform properly. It's not a monologue. It's not a 12-minute presentation. It's not a highly edited YouTube commercial. The dude's going to be on stage, and I don't care how jacked up he's going to be. He's going to crash and burn.
Yeah, I guess. Everybody knows he came in too drugged up at the State of the Union. But even being too drugged up, wired, crazy, angry looking, he didn't have to go back and forth. And, I think the one area that Trump could really trip him up is just talk about numbers. He gets so confused talking about numbers. You bring up leaders, the names of foreign leaders. He gets confused. He thinks the president of Mexico is the president of Egypt. So, they're probably, planning ways to trip him up. But again, I appreciate you pointing out that this whole thing could be to publicly embarrass Biden.
Well, the biggest thing that they're going to have, and I'm sure this is my father's idea, but now I've made it mine, is, Jake Tapper's going to have an earbud in, and they'll be fact checking Donald Trump real time with like the most insignificant of details. Oh, it wasn't January 6th, it was January 10th, whatever. They're going to be fact checking Trump in real time to try to make him look stupid or like a liar, and they will certainly not extend the courtesy to Biden. But no, this is like trying to prop up a sinking ship. There's no amount of patchwork that Jake Tapper or CNN is going to be able to do, in my view. The State of the Union address, where Trudeau, where Biden still came off as unhinged and maniacal. I mean, that was a long time ago now. Biden's decline, even since then, has been stunning and remarkable. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, maybe he comes in and just skates through, and the media does their patch-up job and carries that corpse along through to November. We'll see. But I do think it's a setup to try to find a way, the most public and the most obvious of situations, to warrant swapping out Joe Biden and getting him to concede. I'm old. I got to do it for the good of the party.
Yeah. You've probably noticed this, but Donald Trump is going places most politicians aren't going. Biden certainly isn't going. He's been to New Jersey, the Bronx, heading to Chicago, Los Angeles. He even goes to the Libertarian political meeting. Now he's doing this CNN debate, which is obviously heavily designed in favor of Joe Biden. Why do you think he's doing this? Is he just showing the American people, I care about you enough to go places no one else is going?
He's doing it to prove a point. I mean, first of all, he's hitting places which have typically been, not off limits, but Democrat strongholds, because I think a lot more is up for grabs this time around. I'm a Canadian, so I'm not fully immersed in the dynamics of the history of these districts, and I just there's a lot more that is up for grabs or that is swinging right now than people truly want to admit. We're seeing it internationally, we're seeing it up in Canada, and we're seeing it in the States. There's a shift to the populist side of things, and people are fed up with the overt corruption and anti-nationalism. As much as people think nationalism is a four-letter word, it's not. It's good to be nationalistic. They're fed up with the elites destroying their nations, and they look at Joe Biden and they see it. And so I think Trump hitting places that have been historically Democrat is proving a point, and I think it's having an impact. Him going on CNN, you got to look. It's fun. Go into hostile territory, knowing that they want to destroy you. It's fun. It's good exercise, and it shows cojones. That, and he's going to reach a crowd that he might not otherwise reach. I appreciate everyone's going to say it's a setup, yada, yada. Trump could be quiet and they'll smear him. He could say nothing and they'll smear him. So I like it. I love it. Whether or not the rules are anti-Trump or intended to protect Joe Biden, mute buttons, no live audience, whatever. There's going to be sound bites. And if I'm Trump, I'm hammering on a few things. Off limits, maybe. That intelligence lied about his crack addict son. That this man and this president Biden, that is, has been the most compromised and extortionable presidency of all time. That his daughter, now the diary, has been confirmed. So you got a sniffy old pervert that everybody knew was a pervert. Sexual assault allegations against Tara Reid. Now confirmation from his own daughter that he showered with her and she felt molested as a kid. Crackhead son, where his intelligence lied about it. Weaponizing all the facets of the judicial system, the prosecutorial system. I mean, you've got an abject tyrant in power being propped up by a deep state tyranny. Let it all out and show it to the CNN viewers, because I doubt they know the full extent of it.
Yeah, no, this I think is Trump's greatest opportunity to put his ideas in front of Democrats, because they're there thinking that he's going to be humiliated, crash and burn, but he's still getting the eyeballs. And he's one of those guys that, no publicity is bad publicity. He's willing to take it from wherever he can get it, because he wants to get that message out. I don't know if you saw this or not, but down in Georgia, they do this election audit. And they discover 380,761 missing ballot images from Election Day and 17,000 missing just from the audit that they did. Now they're saying, oh, we got to destroy all of those ballots, right? Right as it comes to the time where they could go in and say, okay, these ballots never existed, or they all went for Joe Biden, or they all went for Trump, or whatever it is. They're destroying them. Any coincidence that they're doing this now that the audit has shown that there's a lot of missing ballots, enough to overturn the election?
Well, I mean, this news, I hear it piecemeal, but I mean, we've known from the get-go that I wasn't on the bandwagon of the Dominion vote flipping thing. It was, especially in Georgia, It was signature verification. That was the problem. It was the ballot harvesting and not matching the signatures to the envelopes. That was the issue. They never did not only a meaningful signature match, they never did one. And so look, this will only be telling me what I already believe, which is, you have to be careful when you hear information that confirms what you already know or believe to be true. But no doubt. I mean, it's like, we know what happened. We know what happened in Arizona. We saw what happened in the Kerry Lake trial afterwards. And there's the old intelligence expression that, you can't control or prevent people from knowing everything. It's not a question of what people know. It's a question of when they learn it. And so they'll trickle out the information 4 years late after they spent the last 3 years calling anybody who said the election was stolen an election denier. And they'll say, all right, well, here you go. What can you do now? Destroy it. And then in 4 years' time, they'll be able to say, we told you. We just told you 4 years late after denying it. But it's not a surprise whatsoever. Georgia, the harder that they fight to assert that it was, intact, the harder that they call people names, the more you know that it's true. It's just the MO of a legacy media.
Yeah. Yeah, you bring up a good point about, we gave you the truth. We just gave it too late, like up in Philadelphia or up in Pennsylvania. Oh, yeah, over 100,000 ballots should have been thrown out for bad date, no date, coming in after the election's already over, and then Biden wins, right? Same thing with this new bombshell story about Paul Ryan having the Steele dossier this whole time, knowing it was a fake this whole time, and he's said nothing because his hatred of Donald Trump matters more to him than Americans getting along, faith in the judicial system, faith in the political system. The guy's a total Trump derangement, Trump hating loser who has caused so much divisiveness in the country for a document that he's had and kept hidden.
It is, well, first, like, people think I or others only pick on Democrats. It's uni-party and or deep state. Call it whatever you want. The Steele dossier is the most egregious element of this, because you want to talk about foreign interference and election interference and campaign finance violations. I suspect your viewers and anybody who knows me knows this already, but like, the Steele dossier was a manufactured lie, dubbed opposition research, paid for by Hillary Clinton and the DNC, known lie, leaked to the FBI through their lawyer, Michael Sussman, who then lied when he said to the FBI that he did not meet with them, or whoever was investigating it, that he didn't meet with the FBI for and on behalf of a client, DNC Hillary Clinton, even though he billed them, Hillary Clinton and the DNC, for the meeting in which he fed the FBI a fake that everyone knew was a fake dossier, so that the FBI could leak it to Yahoo, have them publish an article. They could then rely on that article to get a spy warrant, an illegal FISA warrant against Carter Page. That is a coup against the American people. And it wasn't just Democrats that knew about it. It was a coup. And everyone who knew about it and stayed silent or continues in the cover-up, continues in the affirmation that Trump was the one colluding with the Russians or colluding with foreign interests. I mean, it's I've never seen such, it's not treason in the legal sense, but treasonous behavior in my life. And it's beyond the pale. And Michael Sussman, when he goes to trial in DC, gets acquitted despite being dead to rights. Hillary Clinton gets an $8,000 slap on the wrist, the DNC $113,000 fine. No criminal prosecution, despite the most egregious interference with elections ever, among other things. It's almost depressing, but I think the tide is turning.
Yeah, I do too. Okay, final question. I want to get your legal mind on this. The Supreme Court has announced that the Louisiana, Missouri versus Biden manipulating, controlling, threatening social media, our freedom of speech, that case, that they have no standing, therefore it's thrown out. And the Biden administration can go back to asking Facebook and YouTube and Google to harass people, stifle or suppress conservative voices, remove them if necessary, if they are deemed disinformation, misinformation, or malinformation. What are your thoughts on the Supreme Court throwing this out?
How much can I swear on your channel?
Just a little.
It's judicial bullshit is what it is. It's God bless standing, because if you didn't have the standing doctrine, the Supreme Court might actually have to adjudicate on substantive issues of the most national, international spiritual importance. How many 2020 election cases did they weasel out of, or the court system, not necessarily the Supreme Court, because of standing? Too early, too late, or no standing. I mean, it's a bloody joke. And Robert Barnes, who we have our Sunday show, and he's been talking about standing as a manufactured Pontius Pilate of a legal principle that has no place in the Constitution. Case and controversy. You imagine the Supreme Court 6-3 comes out and says the states don't have a direct enough basis of a claim against the government. They didn't go after the social media companies. They went after the government. They haven't demonstrated that they have suffered any prejudice or sufficient prejudice to grant them standing. It's the most cowardly cop-out imaginable. And no one can have standing. I mean, it's a wild thing. They weren't going after the social media companies because they weren't trying to prevent the social media companies from doing what they were doing. They were trying to prevent government from strong-arming social media companies into effectively becoming extensions of the government. And then they say, "No, you didn't suffer. So find me a plaintiff who suffered enough, and we'll bring this file back, go back to court over and over again." It's cowardice, it's stupidity, and it's the cheapest cop-out imaginable, because they'll find someone else who will say, "Well, you didn't prove a direct enough prejudice. You didn't show that you, as an individual, were censored. And if you did, even if you did, then go after the social media companies, not the government." You got John Stossel, the journalist, who's suing Facebook. You got RFK, who's going after the government. There's a case and controversy here. Just adjudicate on the merits and quit being a bunch of cowards who avoid the most substantive decision on the eve of the next election. But look, find a bit of a silver lining. The process is the punishment, is the expression, but also sometimes the process is the enlightenment. We've seen what the government's done. You've got now Elon Musk in charge of Twitter, so he won't be amenable to being strong-armed like it was being strong-armed back when, what was his name, James Baker, former FBI general counsel working with Twitter. I mean, they were obviously extensions of the government. They were in every aspect of reality. So it's just a cop-out, but we know what's going on now. People are smarter. You can have a legislative remedy to the extent that one can be had, but if there's a change of power, you'll have a push for that. And maybe one day, someone with standing, someone with sufficient nexus to the, will be able to file a claim. But no, it's supreme cowardice. Ooh. I'm gonna use that. It's supreme cowardice.
Yeah, no, that's great. You can trademark that, and it's also true. Hey, David, this has been a great conversation. Thank you for coming on and weighing in on some of this. You've got a great legal mind. You see this from a perspective that I can't bring to my audience. So I really appreciate you agreeing to come on. If people want to follow you online, what is the best way for them to do that?
On Rumble, Viva Fry. On Locals, it's vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Barnes is Barnes. And on Twitter, but be warned, I swear a lot more on Twitter than in real life. It's the Viva Fry. So just at the Viva Fry. But if you put in Viva Fry in the search engine, put in news, whatever, you'll get tons of search results. My most, the one about which I am most proud is if you put in drone bass fishing, you will see me catch a beautiful smallmouth bass trolling a jitterbug on a drone about 6 or 7 years ago. One of the happiest moments of my life.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, now I know as soon as we get off of this broadcast, what I am going to be searching. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming on. Thanks for doing everything to keep people up to date on true and good information. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much. You too.